What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Floyd Street's Finest, a Louisville basketball podcast presented by Great Flood Brewing Company. I am your host, Jeff Greer. Of course, we are a part of the Field of 68 Media Network. If you have not checked out Field of 68, this is the perfect time to do so as March Madness creeps up ever so closely now. And we're just less than a month at this point away from Selection Sunday, from conference tournaments, from the NCAA tournament, and all the fun that goes with all of those things. And it's just really very fun to go back to relatively normal NCAA tournament life, where we have we'll have sites and teams flying all over the country, and all those things. Should be a really entertaining month. And I, for one, am looking forward to it because I am a coaching carousel junkie. It is my favorite thing about college basketball, which probably outside of the tournament, of course. But I do love coaching carousel. I love the gossip that comes with it. It's really, I think it's fun. So should be an entertaining couple of weeks for everybody involved with programs looking for coaches. And Louisville certainly very high on the list, which is why we have Luke Hancock on the show today, the Final Four most outstanding player from 2013, a legend from the Louisville basketball program over the years who has stuck around in town. We talked to him a little bit about the perception that he thinks the Louisville job has from the outside, from what he's heard from people while working at the ACC network, and also how he views the job and what he would like, what attributes he would like to see with the head coach, and some of the areas where the head coach needs to navigate the challenging waters that are the Louisville job. Look, every job that is at this level is a difficult job. There's a reason why it takes an exceptionally talented person to succeed at these jobs. There's a handful of them across the country, and Louisville is certainly in that category. For all of the tough things that have happened the last 6-7 years with this program, it still has the potential to be one of the very best programs in the country. And even when it is struggling the way it is obviously still a very powerful program in terms of name brand, and certainly in the community where it resides here in Louisville. Before we get to Luke, I got to say two things. One, the coaching search is ongoing. As I wrote in my newsletter, which you can find and subscribe to at jeffgreer.substack.com, there's a lot of politics involved in the head coaching search. We had Josh Hurd on last week, the interim athletics director, and there is concern that there are possibly two avenues that the coaching search could go, because there are some people who believe that in order for Josh Hurd to get the athletics director job as the permanent gig, he has to hire Kenny Payne. There's a ton of pressure on Louisville and the athletics department to make that decision to hire Kenny Payne. There's been a lot of phone calls and rallying of support from among former players. And what is now really fascinating about that, as a quick side note, is there's now the pushback to that. I don't know if he's interested. We are definitely in the wheel turning portion of the coaching search, where I think everybody's waiting for the music to stop and figure out what chair is available to sit down in. But the concern then with that could also be maybe not the concern, and maybe that's unwarranted. Maybe that's overwrought, that Josh Hurd, if he wants the permanent job, has to make a certain hire. Maybe that's not quite true, and those concerns aren't warranted or necessary. But the other avenue that people are talking about is, what is the best hire for the university? Through all of the campaigning, the politicking, anything that might have to do with the permanent athletics director job, what is the best thing for the university? And as I wrote in my newsletter, and I believe this, and you probably gathered this from hearing from me talking with, and you hearing from Josh Hurd last week, everybody around him, people who have talked to him, people who know him, think that Josh Hurd has the university's best interests in mind. And if he doesn't think that a certain hire is right, he won't make it. But he certainly is someone who would put the university interests first and foremost. according to a lot of people who know him. And I think he spoke specifically to the importance of that in terms of what he learned from Jay Wright in Villanova while working in Philadelphia, that is something that makes for a really solid program, is when the program, and I talk about this with Luke, when the program does things that they feel only benefits both the program and the university and the athletics department, and when the university thinks all the way down in a really solid manner with the basketball program. Do they have the infrastructure? Can they create the trust and infrastructure and the integrity to move in lockstep between the university, the athletics department, and the men's basketball program? What does that look like? And I think that's why you're going to see a much more thorough search than just zeroing in on one candidate and that's it. And there's no interviews or anything like that. I think Louisville, especially Josh Hurd, would like to hear plans that people have. Who are they going to hire? Who's going to be on their staff? How confident are you that you can get those people to be on your staff? And what is your strategy? What does your plan look like to talk to the different constituencies around the basketball program to soothe some of the cracks and the frustrations that have bubbled to the top? And what is your plan to navigate all those difficult waters while also winning basketball games, which requires you to recruit and put together a great roster immediately in the transfer portal, but also with late signings? And how are you going to keep players? What's your strategy for developing and keeping players, which is now a huge, huge, huge aspect, even more than it was before in coaching college basketball. So there's a lot at play here. In previous newsletters as well and podcasts, we've talked about different names and people who I think are interested in the job, that coming from reporting with industry sources. It's not just me saying, I think so-and-so is interested. It's from people saying, people who I trust, and you would trust too, if they told you this, saying, oh, this guy said that they might be interested or indicated some interest in the job. So there's a couple names out there, but we right now are still kind of in the smoke phase of this whole thing, where agents are getting the tires kicked on their clients, and the search firm is starting to do its little thing, and they're going to recommend and vet people. I shouldn't say recommend. They're going to vet people. They're going to present a few different candidates who they vetted, who they feel like fits exactly what Josh Hurd and Louisville are looking for. But ultimately, as Josh said last week, he gets to make the decision, and the Board of Trustees and the University of Louisville Athletics Association will have a say, obviously, in that choice and the approval of that choice. So there's a lot of things already kicking into motion, but there's still a lot of stuff that needs to be settled before a hire is made or anything like that. Conversation with Luke is really interesting, and so I won't keep you from it any longer. But before we get to that conversation, I want to tell you a little bit about our friends over at Great Flood. They are going all out this season. A message from them. During all televised Cardinal women's and men's basketball games this season, our drinks are 10% cheaper for the entirety of the game. This pricing is available at both the Highlands Tap Room and the Middletown Restaurant. We love hosting you and can't wait to root along with you as we cheer on our Cardinals. Thank you for your loyal support, and go Cards. As a side note, we're now expanding our options in our tap room for the first time in 7 years, offering wine by the glass or bottle, and a liquor and cocktail menu is coming soon. And on Sundays at either location, enjoy endless mimosas. Also, a little message from our pals at our partners at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up with Bet Rivers yet, now is the time, because they're offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. What sets them apart, though, is they just require one playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. With their new Rush Pay instant approval, withdrawing your winnings is safer, more secure, and more reliable. Basketball season is very much at its height right now, ready to get into March Madness. Get in on the action by going to betrivers.com today, or by downloading the BetRivers iOS app. And you must be 21 years or older. And if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, enough yakking. Here is my conversation with Luke Hancock. All right, we are joined by a very busy man indeed. He is Luke Hancock, of course, the Final Four's most outstanding player, one of the biggest names associated with Louisville basketball around town. You know him also from his work with ACC Network. Luke, first of all, how are you doing? I know it's a busy time. The markets are going crazy with your other work that you do. The world is going crazy right now. It feels sort of weird to talk about basketball, but nevertheless, how are you?
I'm doing great. It has been a crazy time. It's been a busy time. But this is kind of what you prepare for, what you get ready for. And then with financial markets, this is part of it, because things happen. And I think the experience of going through COVID and just the ultimate black swan event there gives you some serious perspective to get through some of the volatility that is expected with markets. And money's, I think you got to be a good coach for people through this kind of crazy time. But then on the basketball side, like this to me, this is my favorite. I'm a basketball junkie now. I love listening to coaches pre and post game and hearing their thoughts on the Monday Zoom meetings for the ACC, and just watching teams and who's poised really to make that run, because I always had these coaches that focused on the mental aspect of the game and prepare yourself, not only for the first game of the season, but the tough stretches in the middle. And when those two-a-days start to really wear you down. And then these coaches really tried to pride themselves on having their team playing basketball in March. So I really try and key in on those teams and those coaches that are getting their teams really ready to play. And so this time of year where you have the kind of light at the end of the tunnel that is the ACC tournament and then the NCAA tournament, this is the best time for me.
Yeah, it's prime time, man. We're getting ready for some fireworks coming up in March. It should be really exciting. As a side note, you got to be pretty thrilled to see Coach Larrañaga down at Miami having some success with the Hurricanes after a tough past couple of years. For those who don't know, Jim Larrañaga was Luke's coach before he transferred to Louisville. So pretty cool that Miami has kind of surged into the league this year.
Absolutely. And I think it's really an incredible coaching job by him. You don't have, the traditional just monster big side. They got a bunch of skinny guys. Anthony Walker pounds, even if he is 6'10". And Sam Wardenberg's been there forever and had a lot of injuries he's had to battle through. So your front court being that thin and still having so much success in the ACC, sitting at 12-5. I mean, this is one of the best coaching jobs he's done. And I don't think he's going to get quite enough credit because, Wake Forest has been talked about so much, and Mike Bray has been talked about a lot. Like, I don't know if he's going to be a front runner for Coach of the Year, but there's a few names that I really like and should be up there, and he's certainly one of them. He's done a great job.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. All three of those programs have had their issues over the years. Wake Forest, the longest of those groups. Of that group, and all of them have done a great job, and good players too that have really come through.
And I know we're going to get into Louisville here, but like you've seen Miami get knocked down by the even rumors of FBI stuff around that program.
Yep.
So to see them kind of turn the corner a little bit, the teams that kind of opened up and said we didn't do anything, what's our punishment? We're going to let you in. They haven't fared very well. Versus teams that kind of, gave the proverbial middle finger to the NCAA and said, come get us. Those teams have really thrived. LSU, Auburn, Kansas. So, I'm glad Coach Ellis is kind of turning the corner with that stuff, and he can get a real opportunity. So
I have to ask you then on that topic, we finally have now heard that through the Courier-Journal reporting that there's a hearing date set for this IARP, the new process that was created to kind of get infractions and the adjudication of those out of the NCAA purview. It has to feel like for the Louisville community, you know what, at this point, light at the end of the tunnel, at least you have a hearing date, you should get a decision before the end of the year. Was that kind of your takeaway from hearing that?
I guess on the one hand, I would be really excited just to hear there's some finality to this whole process. there are coaches around the country that have told me, that they're recruiting kids that were in middle school when these infractions took place. That, it is laughable.
Yeah,
This
it is.
process is just, it's pretty backwards, man. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, how long this has taken. And so, in some form or fashion, you do feel like a sigh of relief, but you still got to go through that process, and you still got to hear what they have to say. And just, history shows they haven't been very friendly to Louisville. But to me, and in this transition period for Louisville, I think this is incredibly important to say, all right, we're at least going to know what we got in front of us, and we can kind of put this behind us. And I would think, you need a couple things for a coach to be really attracted to the UofL job again. The IARP process date was one of the major ones. And then it's, who you're going to put around him. Is his boss going to be he, or I guess it could be a she, certainly. But, you need to know who your boss is, and you need to know you can get this black cloud that's been over the program for so very long behind you for UofL to be able to take that jump. And, people who say it's not a attractive job and stuff like that, it's really comical, because, you're starting way down, but the ramp up could be absolutely incredible. And with the names that I've heard that are even being considered, I think the future's bright once you get past these few things.
Yeah. Well, that's such a, the ceiling is incredible. And I saw Ross McMains after, I think it was the UNC game. And I told him, this is because they hadn't been able to really see it for a variety of reasons through the course of this season that has been so frustrating for a lot of people, including within the program. But I told him, I was like, the Duke and UNC games are what Louisville looks like when it's rocking. And you played in a bunch of those games too, with great crowds and national attention on Louisville. So that the ceiling is extremely high. And it does feel like, if this is the floor, it could get a lot worse. It could be a lot worse than the floor that Louisville is experiencing right now. But I wanted to ask you one thing, because of the work you've done with the ACC, and people around the league. I had Josh Hurd on my podcast last week, and he was talking about how his time at Villanova showed him how important infrastructure to a university setup is for a coach and for a basketball program. Obviously talking about Jay Wright, having an AD who is firmly in his corner, having a president and a board of trustees and a university community firmly in the basketball program's corner, but also the program doing things that they feel like are the best for the university versus necessarily just kind of being their own thing. It does feel like these are all important aspects that Louisville should be able to get in order in the next 9, 10, 11 months, right? The president too, you throw in there as a permanent president.
You would hope. You would think so. The tough part is, you got to go hire so many people to go through the process. To me, if you had an opportunity here to go hire the best person, then you go out and do it right away, whether you're an interim or not. And, those no-brainer kind of names, Jay Wright's at a great institution, but if Jay Wright were available, for example, you would go hire him, and you probably get the interim taken off your AD tag if you get something.
Yeah.
But not having any of the decision makers ready to step up and be able to make those decisions and kind of have something in their back pocket, you got to go through the process, and you got to do the search firm. And you got to just make sure that you hire someone that, really has Louisville's best interest in mind, and goes through all of those proper channels. And then, you'd like to see it done sooner rather than later. I know there are some great people that have been put out there for helping with part of the AD search. I know that they're getting a lot of community influence, going out and meeting with boosters and whatnot. I think that's a really smart idea, figure out what the fan base really wants, what the community really wants. Because to be honest, even if I am from the era of Tom Jurich and Rick Pitino, there probably needs to be a balance somewhere in between the Wild West days, or at least what it seems like with the way things were done at that point, and where we're at today. I would like to see more of a focus on, promoting one of the best basketball teams in the country to be, a top 5, top 10 program again. And you have to invest in that. You have to support that. And it's not easily done. You have to find somebody who's athletic focused. And we were blessed with that for a lot of years. And through that whole transition, I think we've just tried to focus on how can we, tiptoe around and stay out of trouble. And we haven't been as growth oriented as we were before. And this is a university, and in particular, a basketball program that, given the proper resources, can get back with the snap of its fingers. I mean, look at what they're doing, Jeff, with that dormitory, for example.
Mm-hmm.
The renovations that are going on with the Kieber Family Center. Like, to have that kind of support and how just unbelievable that setup is going to be. You already play in a world-class arena, you play in a great conference, you bring in a high-profile coach, there's a tremendous amount to sell here. You just have to get those infrastructure pieces together, and then, find a way to give enough conviction for that coach to realize, I'm going to be supported with the things I need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'd heard plenty of reports of people from around the program who had been frustrated that there were things that the basketball program was told no on, and things that were kind of frustrating that they didn't have the resources available for them. So I want to ask you, Luke, this. So in addition to, like I said, your work with the ACC network, I know you do radio here in town as well. But as an ex-player and a guy who played for, in my opinion, the best modern X's and O's coach in college basketball that there has been, what kind of attributes, I guess, would you say, like, if they sat you down, if the search firm and Josh Hurd sat you down and said, give me, 5 things that you think the Louisville coach needs, what would your answer be?
Well, I think number one, you have to have really strong recruiting ties in today's environment. I don't think you can be, singular focused on one way the way you used to be able to. When I think about how Virginia built their roster to win a national championship, they went out and got their specific kind of guy, and they developed them over multiple years. And then there were these big physical, guys inside, and smooth shooters and great passers on the perimeter, and probably DeAndre Hunter's that in between. But I don't know how well that works in today's environment of just, hey, I'm going to recruit these studs and develop them over 4 years. And when they're juniors or seniors, we're going to win. Now it's so easy to hit the transfer portal. I don't see those guys, especially high caliber players, 4 and 5 stars, just sitting and waiting for 2 and 3 years before they get the real opportunity. Mm-hmm. So I think, Steve Forbes is my example there. His JUCO ties and the fact that he's been a Division I head coach, he has a mix. He can go hit the transfer market. He can go hit JUCOs. He can get guys to develop over time. He's got this wide net he can cast when he's going to look at players. And he's got the evaluation tools from having done JUCO and been at these lower levels so long about why fit guys in with what I'm trying to do now. Hopefully I don't get in trouble. My wife just called.
That's okay.
Number two, I do think you have to be somebody who can face the microphone, the criticism, the crowd, the community. I think that through the ups and downs, even in a program like Louisville that has all this support, all these resources, having played here, like you said, having been a player, those were boos early on in my career, missing shots. Mm-hmm. And championship that year, we did a heck of a lot of winning, and I still heard boos. So I don't think we'd lost a game and I was still hearing boos. I know how fans feel about, in the Louisville community, feel about their basketball program. They're passionate. They have an incredible amount of enthusiasm, and they want to win. And so I think a coach has to be very ready for that. You have to have really thick skin, but also be relatable enough to the fans to be able to talk to them and show them that you're working on things and you're developing a program. Show them what your vision is. Because I think we saw, if you're an old school coach that, kind of tells the media off at times, it doesn't really pay you back. Mm-hmm. That mentality in the long run probably hurts you at a place like Louisville. I think another key in this environment is going out and being able to build relationships with the big booster money. Rick Pitino, for example, he had Friends of the Ville. And so he invited in all these different wealthy people to bid on going to games and boxes and private this and dinners, golf trips, things like that, in order to, cultivate money and resources to make his program another level. And so I do think that's part of it. Can you help with name, image, likeness with your relationships around a community and build and help these guys feel like they can not only make money then, but probably another aspect is how do you help them after, whether it's into coaching or whatever their next step is. I was a business guy. I know Kyle Keurig got into the business school and went through that. So regardless of what your thing is, you got to be able to sell that to a more than one kind of kid, right? I know everybody wants to play in the NBA, but it doesn't necessarily work that way. And probably my last point is being that player's coach. I'll just reiterate that, because the tough love. I think you're seeing that coaches that are exiting basketball right now are a lot of those old school coaches that, MF you and yell at you and get on your case. And, not only were you stuck there, it was just a different time where it was part of it. And I think now the toughest part, in my opinion, is you consistently recruit the kids. It's really tough to sit somebody on the end of the bench and not pay attention to them. Those guys are going to leave. And so you have 10, 11, 12 guys that can play. You have to constantly recruit those guys, even the ones that are playing 5-10 minutes a game. So I think it's really tough.
Yeah. And to your point, having those skill sets, all combined with navigating what has become, I think at times it can get toxic here. But I think the toxicity has a lot to do with just the lack of success. I think if the team is winning, a lot of the issues maybe go away. Do you agree with that assessment? Like that will help a lot, or do you think there's still some work that would need to be done by the head coach, even if they were winning games here in town, to kind of soothe some of the frustrations that exist in this fan base?
Winning cures it all, man. I just, I think about the stuff that I went through as a basketball player, even at UofL. If we weren't winning, how would I have reacted to it? How would it have made me feel? And, paying the price only makes sense when you get the reward. And making runs to multiple Final Fours and winning 3 conference titles and being a part of the winningest class ever at UofL, it was all worth it. I paid a price. I got a big reward for it. And, if you pay the price and you feel like you're giving everything you have, whether you really are or not, if you feel that way, it's really tough to be consistently losing games, to hear it, because of social media. I'm like an old man now, Jeff, because the last of the group that didn't have social media in your face 24/7. I had a Twitter, but I never really checked it. I had an Instagram, but you had a couple thousand people on there maybe. Now these, 50,000, 100,000. If you're Haley Van Lith, you've got hundreds of thousands, a million followers, right? They tell you if you're doing good, and they certainly tell you if you're doing bad. And so, again, not having any pro teams around here, this market, it can just really weigh on you at times when you're losing, because every couch coach in the community tells you about it with social media. It's in your face all the time. So, I think being able to block some of that stuff out helped me, but certainly going through a little adversity and feeling like we're the best team in the country, I can handle it. I know I know I'm going to get something good on the other side of this. And part of that is part of that is coaching. If Rick Pitino, who's coached NBA scoring champions and the Boston Celtics and New York Knicks and won championships, if he tells me, I got to go run through that wall in order to win, like, all right, we strap up a little bit, I'm gonna go run through that wall. If a guy who's not proven comes here and says that, you may question some things, but there are pros and cons. I know Kenny Payne's name is thrown out there. If you want to be a pro and Kenny Payne says, well, you think you're hot stuff as a big man, let me call, Karl Anthony Towns and Bam Adebayo and tell you how hard they had to work. That's impactful. That's a different way of doing it, but you can get your point across that way. Same way when Rick Pitino told me to do something, I was able to listen.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, those different avenues, but I think could potentially be obviously be very successful. Well, Luke, the last thing then is, you and I both new fathers. You've got a couple months on me, but have you started to sleep again yet? Has the lifestyle returned at least to some normalcy?
Yeah, if you ask me in a week, I might change my. But we're like, knock on wood, we're a good weekend with some solid sleep. So
I love that.
Yeah, we're once we got through the little sleep regression right at 4 months, where we were like in a good routine, we felt great, and then just all of a sudden, bam, starts waking up at 1:30, 2:30, and 4 o'clock. And so once we got through that, we're in good shape now. How about you? Everything good? Sleeping?
Not yet. We're told that, so our kid is four weeks old now. So we're told that this is like the real brunt of the struggles for the next like couple of weeks, and then we'll be through it. So we'll see. But luckily, as you know, it's incredibly helpful to have a good partnership with your significant other. So we've done as much as we can to try to alleviate the stress between the two of us. But man, the payoff, you know what, Luke? There you go. There's a good example. The payoff is worth it. It's to see a cute kid and know that you're doing something positive and good in the world makes it all worth it. So I won't worry about the lack of sleep, and I'll just be happy that I got a little one to pay attention to and help out.
Well, 4 weeks in, you haven't quite seen it just yet, but just the first time you get home or you come back and your little little boy lights up at you,
Mm-hmm.
and all that big gummy smile with no teeth that you're there, man, it's like, who needs sleep anyway?
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. But Luke, I appreciate your time. I know you're super busy, so I'll let you get going, but thank you so much for your time, and love always having you on the podcast whenever we can get you.
Anytime, Jeff. Thanks for having me, man.
All right. Thanks, buddy.